one point, Adrien Broner had it all: world titles, viral fame, and millions in the bank. But behind the flash and flex was a storm building no one wanted to admit was real. His nickname was The Problem, but it wasn't just about boxing. The real problem was that Broner didn't know how to stop spending. He thought the millions would never end. He thought the spotlight would never dim. What started as victory celebrations turned into a lifestyle that couldn't be sustained. Luxury cars, diamond chains, private jets, and wild nights. Every dollar was a symbol, until there were none left. What happened next wasn't a collapse. It was a slow, public unraveling. And when the illusion broke, so did everything else around him. This is the story of how Adrien Broner made $10 million and lost every cent. Adrien Broner wasn't born into wealth. He was born into survival. Growing up in the rough neighborhoods of Cincinnati, Broner was surrounded by crime, poverty, and a world that didn't offer many lifelines. He was fighting long before he ever put on a pair of gloves, fighting to be seen, to be respected, and to be safe. He's spoken about watching friends die, getting jumped, being arrested, and learning early on that the streets weren't going to show him mercy, but boxing did. And when he found the ring, something clicked. Broner's natural talent was undeniable. Fast hands, slick footwork, knockout power. He had the kind of swagger that made promoters take notice. By the time he was in his early 20s, he was being called the next Floyd Mayweather. Undefeated, flashy, young, and unafraid to speak his mind, Broner didn't just win fights, he sold them. That's when the money started pouring in. His 2013 fight with Paulie Malignaggi made headlines not just for the trash talk, but for the $1.25 million payday. His war with Marcos Maidana pulled in even more. Endorsements followed, bigger purses, nightclub appearances, and suddenly, Broner was on top of the world. There was no financial literacy, no accountant watching the numbers, no manager putting his foot down. Broner went from barely affording meals to tossing cash at the club like it was nothing. The people around him didn't stop him. They encouraged it. Everyone wanted a piece, and Broner gave it away freely. Rolexes for friends, wads of cash thrown at fans, exotic trips on a whim. There was no long-term plan, just the high of now. And the more he earned, the more he spent. Broner had escaped poverty, but he never escaped the mindset that money wasn't permanent. He acted like every fight was his last, and spent the purses like it. He lived out every fantasy a broke kid might dream of: the fast cars, the diamond grills, the penthouses. But under the surface, something was already going wrong, and no one was paying attention. It wasn't just the wins that made Adrien Broner famous. It was the persona. Loud, cocky, and unfiltered, he was a walking headline. He dyed his hair wild colors, filmed himself in absurd situations, and threw money around like it was confetti. He made headlines by flushing $20 bills down a toilet. He once recorded himself pretending to eat a $100 bill sandwich. The boxing world had never seen someone quite like him. Someone who wanted to be a celebrity more than a champion. And for a while, it worked. His antics drove views. Fans tuned in to see what he would do next, whether he'd win or implode. But what Broner didn't realize is that attention doesn't always pay in the long run. Behind the scenes, his behavior was scaring off sponsors. Major brands that once considered deals with him pulled back. TV networks that saw him as a rising star quietly began weighing their options. The boxing business isn't just about fists. It's about marketability. And Broner was becoming harder and harder to sell. He wasn't just unpredictable, he was becoming toxic. In 2016, footage of him allegedly assaulting someone outside a bowling alley surfaced. Instead of issuing an apology, Broner doubled down, brushing it off. When arrest warrants were issued for him missing court dates, he laughed about it online. He mocked the justice system. He ridiculed opponents. But the public was starting to lose patience. There's a fine line between being the villain people pay to see and being the guy nobody wants to associate with. Promoters began distancing themselves. HBO and Showtime gave him fewer spotlight opportunities. And yet, Broner didn't tone it down. If anything, he became more outrageous. But behind the cameras, those same outbursts were costing him millions. Cancelled endorsements, legal fees, missed business opportunities. One boxing insider later revealed that Broner lost at least 2 major sponsorships, each worth 6 figures, because companies didn't want to be linked with his behavior. And when the fight purses began to shrink, those sponsorships could have been lifelines, but they were already gone. Broner had become a brand no one wanted to touch. And worse, he didn't seem to care. There's reckless spending. And then there's Adrien Broner. At his peak, Broner didn't just live large. He lived like a man convinced the money would never run out. Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, Ferraris, he owned them all, sometimes several at once. He gave away Rolex watches like they were party favors. He'd walk into strip clubs and make it rain 5 figures in one night, all while his entourage hyped him up and recorded it for Instagram. But what looked like flexing was really masking a deeper issue. There was no plan, no savings, no strategy, just pure chaos. When financial experts looked into Broner's known income versus his spending habits, the math didn't add up. Court filings revealed he often had less than $20 in his personal bank accounts. And yet, every week, he was showing off another shopping spree, another private jet, another bag-secured moment. How? Because it wasn't real wealth. It was borrowed luxury. Many of his cars were leased. The homes? Rented. The jewelry? Financed. He was living on the illusion of wealth, feeding an audience that expected excess and drama. And Broner kept delivering, even if it meant borrowing to keep the fantasy alive. It all came crashing down when he started missing court-mandated payments. One infamous moment came in 2021 when a judge grilled Broner for flaunting stacks of cash online while claiming he had only $13 in his account. The judge didn't buy it. "Mr. Broner, you have money to pay this judgment," she snapped. "You just choose not to." That moment revealed the ugly truth. Broner wasn't broke because he never had money. He was broke because he refused to treat his money with respect. He burned through over $10 million with nothing to show for it but a few faded memories and a mountain of legal trouble. And the worst part? No one told him to stop. His entourage encouraged it. His fans cheered it. The industry watched and said nothing. Because for a time, his chaos made them money too. But once the checks stopped clearing, Broner was left alone, with no savings, no assets, and no one left to blame. As the money began slipping away, the lawsuits started piling up. But Adrien Broner didn't just face legal trouble, he invited it. His reckless behavior outside the ring became a magnet for problems, and every legal issue came with a price tag. In 2018, he was hit with a lawsuit over a nightclub assault where he was accused of forcibly kissing a woman. A civil court ordered him to pay $830,000 in damages. That was just the beginning. Instead of addressing the judgment head-on, Broner avoided court. He ignored hearings, he missed deadlines, and the penalties stacked up. By 2020, he was being held in contempt of court for failing to pay. But rather than stay low-key, Broner kept posting videos on social media showing himself with massive stacks of cash, luxury items, and wild nights out. He laughed. The courts didn't. A now infamous moment came in November 2020. During a virtual court hearing, Broner told the judge he had just $13 in his bank account, despite those videos showing otherwise. He claimed friends were sending him money through Zelle and Cash App. The judge wasn't buying it. "You have money coming in, yet you keep saying you don't," she said. "This is serious." The court eventually jailed Broner until he could prove he had the means to pay the judgment. That public humiliation, being ordered to hand over financial records, being called a liar by a judge, and briefly going behind bars, should have been a turning point. But Broner kept spiraling. It wasn't just one lawsuit. Over the years, Broner's name appeared on dozens of legal dockets: assault charges, driving infractions, unpaid debts, child support issues, and missed court dates. Every fine, every judgment, every missed payment wasn't just a legal problem. It was another chunk taken out of his already bleeding finances. And what made it worse was the pattern. Broner didn't handle issues quietly. He turned them into spectacles. He mocked his legal situations online, turned court appearances into circus acts, and treated serious charges like PR stunts. But the money that once insulated him from consequences, it was gone. And now, the law had him cornered. By the late 2000s, 2010s, Adrien Broner wasn't the same fighter he once was. The speed was dulling, the hunger was fading, and the spotlight was shrinking. But instead of reinventing himself, Broner tried to brute force his way back to relevance. He began promising massive comebacks, each time saying, "This one's different." But the results never matched the hype. In 2017, he faced Mikey Garcia in a fight that was supposed to reignite his career. Broner lost decisively. He didn't throw enough punches. He didn't look conditioned. He didn't seem like the Broner of old. Critics called it uninspired. Fans called it disappointing. And behind the scenes, that fight purse didn't last long. Then came the Giovanni Santiago fight in 2021. Broner barely scraped by with a win. The performance was lackluster, the crowd wasn't impressed, and social media tore him apart. The numbers didn't lie. He only landed 98 punches in the entire 12-round fight. He looked slow, flat, disconnected. The guy who once predicted knockouts was now getting booed for survival mode. Each failed comeback had a hidden cost: training camps. Broner's camps were notoriously expensive. He'd fly in trainers, sparring partners, and nutritionists. He stayed in high-end facilities, racked up hotel bills, and bought equipment like he was preparing for a world title, not a low-tier comeback bout. Some camps cost over $300,000, while the fight purse didn't even bring in half of that after taxes and team cuts. It became clear Broner wasn't fighting for glory anymore. He was fighting to stay afloat. But boxing doesn't pay out sympathy checks. If you're not headlining, you're not earning. And Broner wasn't headlining. His brand was damaged. Promoters didn't trust him. Sponsors stayed silent. The same man who once claimed he'd never fight for less than 7 figures was now taking any gig that would keep the lights on. He even signed with BLK Prime in 2022 for a comeback tour. It sounded promising. Multiple fights, a fresh start, a paycheck. But the deal collapsed before it even began. The fights were canceled. The money never came. And Broner was back to square one. Each failed comeback was another nail in the coffin of his legacy, and another financial hit he couldn't afford. In boxing, fame is fleeting. One moment, you're the next big thing. The next, you're an afterthought. For Adrien Broner, the fall wasn't just public, it was silent. Because the harshest thing the boxing world ever did to him was ignore him. In his prime, Broner couldn't walk into a gym without a crowd forming. Promoters lined up, TV networks built fight nights around him. He had Mayweather's approval, a flashy style, and the confidence of a megastar. But the more he lost, not just in the ring, but in professionalism, the more the industry quietly walked away. By 2022, Showtime stopped mentioning his name. PBC removed him from major cards. Even Floyd Mayweather, once his mentor, refused to acknowledge him publicly. And behind the scenes, the whispers got louder. Trainers said he wouldn't show up. Sparring partners said he was unmotivated. Managers said he refused structure. He became known as difficult, unfocused, dangerous to business. Then came the failed BLK Prime comeback. When the deal fell through, Broner went on Instagram ranting about betrayal, broken promises, and people trying to play him. But the truth was more brutal. The industry didn't want to deal with him anymore. Boxing is brutal, but it's also business. And Broner was bad business. He burned bridges with promoters. He ghosted camps. He showed up overweight. At times, he demanded hundreds of thousands for fights he wasn't in shape to win. Other times, he blamed mental health, legal issues, or financial struggle. But the sport had already moved on. Young, hungry fighters filled the vacuum. Gervonta Davis, Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, all the things Broner could have been, they were becoming. And the fan, they stopped asking, when will Broner come back? They started asking, is he okay? The man who once stole the spotlight now couldn't even buy his way into the undercard. And the scariest part of all, he still hadn't realized that boxing had closed the door behind him. Adrien Broner didn't fall alone, but he did fall surrounded by silence. The entourage that once cheered for him, the so-called friends who lined his pockets with bad advice, and even the trainers who once promised to guide him, they all watched. Some Some stayed around for the ride. Others disappeared when the money dried up. But through it all, almost no one stepped in to stop the spiral. In his peak years, Broner rolled deep. Dozens of people at fights, security, stylists, hangers-on, camera crews. He flaunted his loyalty, saying he was taking care of everyone from back home. And maybe he was. But few of those people were telling him the truth. No one said, "Slow down." No one pulled him aside to say, "This can't last." Instead, they gassed him up, fed the ego, celebrated every excess. Behind the scenes, some in boxing tried to reach him. One former sparring partner claimed he tried to talk Broner into getting financial help. He didn't want to hear it, he said. He thought the money would never stop. Even some promoters warned him, quietly, telling him to invest, to save, to build a future beyond the ring. But Broner didn't listen, or maybe he couldn't. The worst part? The people who might have helped didn't push hard enough. Even Floyd Mayweather, once a brother figure to Broner, backed away. There were no intervention, no forced reality checks, just distance. When Broner needed a lifeline, he found himself looking around and realizing the crowd had thinned out. The same people who partied with him weren't there when he was in court. The ones who wore his merch didn't show up when he was being dragged into rehab. And the ones who smiled in photos weren't calling when he went silent for weeks. You could see it in Broner's eyes as the years went on. Tired, defensive, unpredictable. The showman was fading. And behind him was a trail of people who either couldn't help or wouldn't. And every time he fell a little further, it got quieter. Adrien Broner used to control the narrative. He'd troll the media, hijack post-fight press conferences, and turn chaos into comedy. But somewhere along the line, the act stopped being funny and started being painful. By 2020, Broner's Instagram became a digital diary of his unraveling. One day, he was posting videos partying with women and money. The next, he was crying into the camera, talking about depression. In one haunting live stream, he whispered, "I just don't know what's going on anymore." The comments rolled in, some supportive, others mocking. But the man behind the screen was cracking. He posted direct messages to Al Heyman, his longtime advisor, begging for a fight, begging for cash. He shared screenshots of his bank balance. He claimed he was owed money. He said people had turned their backs. But whether any of it was true didn't matter. The desperation was real, and it was public. In August 2022, Broner shocked fans by pulling out of a scheduled fight just days before it was set to happen. He blamed mental health. "I'm going through a lot at this moment in my life," he wrote, "but I have to step back and overcome these obstacles before I go put my life on the line inside the square circle again." Fans were divided. Some showed support. Others accused him of making excuses. But those closest to him knew this wasn't just about boxing anymore. Broner was battling demons no one could punch through. Days later, he was back online, dancing shirtless to loud music, drinking, smiling as if nothing happened. The cycle was exhausting for fans, for the boxing world, for Broner himself. Even when he checked into rehab in 2023, there was a sense it might not last, and it didn't. Soon, he was back out, back online, and back to pretending everything was fine. But the performances felt hollow. The bravado felt strained. Each video, each post, each erratic rant was a cry beneath the surface. "Please, someone help me." And no one ever did. Today, Adrien Broner is a man caught between two worlds, the shell of a superstar and the shadow of a cautionary tale. He once strutted into arenas with gold chains and fur coats. Now, he walks into small gyms, hoping someone will give him one more chance. The $10 million he once had? Gone, blown, dissolved into memories of champagne, courtrooms, and leased Bentleys. Some sources claim Broner is nearly bankrupt. Others say he's living off small appearance fees, local sponsorships, and regional fights that barely crack 5 figures. He's gone from luxury hotels to budget motels, from viral knockouts to training in obscure gyms far from the cameras. He still posts videos, still talks about comebacks, still flashes money, but it's different now. The comments are filled with pity, not envy. The laughs are gone, and the shine is dull. The IRS reportedly has eyes on him. Old lawsuits still linger. Legal debts haven't disappeared, and the lifestyle he once paraded can't even be faked anymore. Broner has 4 kids and no stable financial base. What happens when the fight checks dry up for good? Even the boxing world has moved on. New stars have taken his spot. New names fill the arenas. And Broner's name, once bold on posters, is now spoken with a shrug. Yeah, I wonder what happened to him. There's no retirement plan, no business empire, no fallback, just a man who once had it all and let it all slip through his fingers. He made $10 million. He spent it faster than it came. And now, all that's left is the lesson, one that every young fighter should study, and one that Adrien Broner has to live with every day.